Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back here to today's edition of Advanced Bass Fishing, and really appreciate you guys coming by the channel to check today's video out. We're going to be talking about fishing riprap during the cold weather months of the year, from about December into say early March. This is some of the best time of year to fish riprap, and I've got 4 lures that I'm going to show you guys here that are my best cold water riprap lures. I'm going to sort of give you guys some tips and advice on strategy, what to look for, and I think it's going to add up to some good fish for you guys over the next coming 2 to 3 months here. I'm also, guys, for get started, a couple quick housekeeping tips. I just want to let you guys know about the sale that Solarbat has on my Signature Series glasses, my RB2 and RB3s right now. You can get them at 50% off by going to the Solarbat website. I'll put that link in the description if you guys would like to get you a pair at 50% off, and get you a pair of the high contrast yellow lens, man. That's my favorite lens. That's what this is right here. Super good lens. And also, while you're looking at the description, please check out my Fish the Moment lake map breakdowns, guys. Good resources to learn more about your favorite lake for the upcoming spring season. So everything's linked in the description. Really appreciate that. Okay, riprap. We've talked about riprap on the channel before and on my other channels. And I got to tell you guys, I love fishing riprap. And it's not like me because I always want to get away from the crowd. I do not like fishing around people, but riprap gets a lot of fishing pressure. The reason that I sort of make an exception for riprap is fish use it all year long. Riprap is one of the top bass fishing structures on any lake that you go to. There's a lot of cover for them. Depending upon the riprap, it can have some proximity to deep water. You got a lot of cover with the rock cover down there. A lot of times these riprap areas are around like over, bridge areas that have current coming through there. Riprap is just a magnet for fish. I mean, the rocks get a lot of algae and plankton on there, which attracts bait fish. A lot of perch use riprap. It's just a lot going on there. And there's not a single month of the year that you cannot catch them on riprap. But I really like fishing riprap during the cold weather months when the water temperatures in the 40s and 50s is my favorite time of year to fish riprap. That's the time of year you can catch the best fish on. So I'm going to show you guys, I'm going to show you my 4 lures that I usually use on riprap, and then I'm going to give you all some tips and advice on how to break riprap down and what to look for with it. Okay, so my first bait, one of my favorites, guys, is this old Lure Jensen speed trap. And also, guys, I'll link all these baits in my Tackle Warehouse link in the description of this video if you want to try them. But this old Lure Jensen speed trap here, I don't know what it is about it, guys. It's deadly on riprap. This is a really good cold water crankbait. Most of the time, I do put some type of like lead strips on the bottom of it so it doesn't float up. It will float up unless you do that. But I just use it on a slow medium retrieve. Just cast it out there parallel to the rocks. It's really good if that water visibility is say under 3 feet. But in cold water, guys, they love a speed trap. Now, right along with that is my other crankbait. I got 2 crankbaits here, is the Megabass Flap Slap. Now, this is a flat-sided crankbait, looks just like a thread fin shad, comes in a lot of different colors. And this Flap Slap is another really good riprap bait. Same thing as with the speed trap. I just throw it out there and make parallel casts to the bank. I'm really trying to target sort of that 3 to 5 foot zone. And for the Flap Slap and for the speed trap, again, I want water visibility less than 3 feet. Probably about 1.5 to 2 foot would be ideal with that. Okay, the next one, guys, is a jig. Just a full-size jig. Got my Blaukat throwback jig here. I'll link it in the description. Brown and orange with a green trailer is my favorite in cold water. And if those fish are not in a chasing mood with the crankbait, you can take this jig and just methodically pitch it and flip it along the whole riprap area, work it down into anywhere between 3 to 10 foot of water, and just pick it apart. A lot of times those bass are feeding on crawdads on the riprap. Jigs are a really good lure for it. So this is probably the one you'll catch the biggest fish on too, a jig over the crankbait. And finally, can't beat a jerkbait on the riprap. Megabass Vision 110, same thing as with the crankbaits. I'm making long casts parallel to the riprap. The 110 is a good choice if you have a little bit cleaner water on those riprap. So if you have water visibility over about 2.5 or 3 feet, say 2.5 to 4 foot or greater clarity, a jerkbait is really good to it. And also a jerkbait is good on a riprap, guys, if the fish are suspended out off the rock. Now, a lot of times on a riprap, these fish, for whatever reason, when the water's cold, they won't be in the rocks. They'll actually suspend out in a little bit deeper water close to those rocks. So what happens on these riprap is when they build the riprap, you know, the heavy equipment dumps those rocks over the side, and depending upon how the riprap is built, sometimes those rocks will extend 15 or 20 foot out away from the bank. So these fish on the jerkbait, they will suspend right there where the rock meets the mud bottom or whatever it is. Normally they're going to be suspended, you know, 5 or 8 foot down over 10 or 15 foot of water. So one way that you can find that out is if you run along the riprap bank with your 2D sonar, pay attention to any bait fish schools. If you see bait fish schools out off the bank, that's a good indication to try a jerkbait there. Okay, now let's talk a little bit about conditions and the type of riprap areas. Now, about any type of riprap is going to be good as long as it has relative deep water close by. Now, some ripraps, like maybe the ones that are like in the back of creeks, may have a little bit shallower water to them. But regardless, any riprap that is next to like a bridge, there's always some deeper water on, you know, the point of that riprap. You know, like where the riprap goes underneath the bridge, those areas usually have deeper water. Now, the riprap farther up the bank may be a little bit shallower. That's pretty common in riprap. There are certain parts of the riprap that have a good drop on it, and some of them are a little bit flatter. And those flatter drops are usually the ones that are down towards the tail end of a riprap. So, you know, I prefer to have some type of, you know, close proximity to deep water, and also the ripraps that have some type of current or wind on it is going to be a little bit better. That's why your bridge underpasses, the riprap on bridge underpasses, are usually some of the best riprap because there's always some current coming underneath that bridge. So, but don't overlook any of them. I'm talking about, you know, dam riprap. Most every dam has riprap on it. The, you know, bridge underpasses, and then a lot of like private property owners have riprap between their docks. Those are usually a little bit shallower riprap. And some of my favorite riprap is real short sections of riprap that are like that are like entering a marina or some type of an area, you know, like a cove or something. You'll see little jetties, little rock riprap jetties that are maybe, you know, 20 to 50 foot long. Don't ever, you know, overlook those. Those are really good areas, a little small, you know, parts on there. Now the weather, the good thing about riprap is when you vary your technique up, you can catch fish on riprap in any weather condition. Those fish will bite. I don't care if it's sunny and calm or if it's windy and cloudy. Those fish will bite. You just have to adjust your technique. Most of the time, based upon your water clarity, it helps if you have a little bit of a breeze. Not much of a breeze when the water's cold. Something enough just to break the surface up, it helps out. What I have found in my own fishing is if you have a higher light intensity day, like it's sunny or partly cloudy, and you do not have much wind, the jerkbait is the number one lure. It seems like to me when those brighter, no wind conditions, I just catch a lot more fish on the jerkbait. If I have lower light conditions like cloud or rain and some wind, you can't beat the crankbait. The crankbait runs a little bit shallower. It's going to activate those little bit fish that are a little bit shallower, and it's my number one choice for that. And the jig pretty much works in about any situation. The only time I really don't like a jig is on a windy, cloudy type situation, but it works in a variety of different wind conditions and light levels. But those are the three that have worked really good with me. Color just depends on the day and the water clarity. I probably prefer some type of a shad pattern on my crankbaits more than anything else, but if the water's a little bit off colored, I'll go to a little bit brighter, like chartreuse side, blackback, something like that. But another thing with it, guys, is you can't slop through riprap. When you're fishing riprap, you have to go slow and methodical. And you have a tendency when you're fishing open riprap that just to put the trolling motor on a little bit too fast. But take your time and creep down that riprap area. Make sure that you're casting about every 5 foot down the riprap rock, because if you don't, you're going to miss fish. I think probably one of the biggest mistakes I see people make fishing riprap is they fish too fast along it. And also with riprap is once you make a pass and you catch a couple fish, just turn your boat around and come back down the same way in the opposite direction. It gives those fish a little bit different casting angle. Sometimes that'll generate it. And also it's about timing. those fish are living on that riprap. They're not going anywhere. So sometimes the bite may be right off the bat in the morning. Sometimes it may be up in the middle of the day. Sometimes it may be in the afternoon. That's something you just sort of have to figure out on a day-to-day basis. And finally, guys, don't get intimidated if there's other people fishing a riprap. Those fish are not getting, every fish is not getting plucked off. Pay attention to what everybody else is fishing and try something else. If you see some guy throwing a crankbait, come back in there with him behind it with a jerkbait or a little jig or shaky head. Try to mix it up with a little bit different. So anyway, guys, don't pass it up, man. It's lots of fish on them. It's easy. If you don't know a lake and you're maybe starting out bass fishing, you can't go wrong by fishing riprap anywhere. So hope it helps out. We'll see you.